All right, this is it. We're doing it. How y'all doing? Good. That's how I say you all in southern United States talk. Y'all. Today, crisps and pickle story. In America, it's chips. Chips are crisps. We got that. But I'll do my best. Chips might have slid in there somewhere. What's really behind infamous historic UI failures? We're going to have some fun. My name is Dean, and it's an honor to speak to y'all today. Appreciate the opportunity. You can find me in all these places. I'll put this up later. I'm a UX guy, so sometimes in dev conferences, they let us UX folks say a few things. It's great. That's me. I own a company called True Matter. We do all UX all the time. That's it. So we're making sites, app software easier to use, have the privilege of speaking and working with developers all day long, which is amazing. But this is why we are here. This is a pickle, and I really, really don't like pickles. Right? I think they're pretty gross. Now, raise of hands here. How many people here like pickles? No. Okay. How many don't like pickles? Oh, wow. Okay, that's great. Like, usually I get like 2 people, and I'm like, we get to talk. The whole thing. It's just us, everyone else. You know, if they get something, that's fine. Okay, so here's the deal with pickles and why I don't like them. Other than I don't like the taste, right? I think they're gross. It's not so much that I don't like them. I loathe them. I hate them to the North Star. And I don't like them, because of the taste, but for 2 important reasons. At least in America, reason number 1 is if you order lunch, whether you ask for it or not, you're getting a pickle. It's a default. We'll get to that in a minute. It's just what happens. No matter what, you get a pickle. And I hate that because I didn't ask for it. And then if a pickle is on your plate, it's briny juice infects the plate. Am I right? Yeah. Now, some of you might think, no, that's it. That's the whole draw. That's the best part about it. No, it's the worst part about it for me, because if a pickle has been on the plate and then removed, I'll still know it was there. So I hate them, okay, for those important reasons, which brings us to the villain of the story. Every story has a villain. Our villain today is Jason's Deli. This is a place in the United States sells sandwiches. I don't believe they're in the UK, so I think I'm safe here today. Now, it's a great place. I love it. Sandwiches are excellent. People are nice. Atmosphere, lovely. But there's this problem with Jason's Deli. And Jason's Deli gives you a pickle whether you ask for it or not. See? It's right there. It's like the top secret extra bonus insidious pickle. Now, that's all fine and dandy. So what I have to do when I'm at Jason's Deli, or really anywhere, because I don't like pickles, is I have to say, I would like a turkey sandwich, please. No pickle, right? Now, what do you think happens to me when I do that? Obvious answer, I always get a pickle. So I had to up my game a little bit. I had to change the way I do this. I had to say things like, hey, please, I just want to emphasize this, that I really don't want the pickle, and I'm totally not kidding. I'd try that. Doesn't work. I still get the pickle all the time. Now, I didn't resort to saying I'm allergic to pickles, because that's a lie. I'm not allergic. I just hate them. No big deal. So I was like, what can I do? And my percentage was not good. About the times I get a pickle. I'm not saying I kept a spreadsheet or anything at all, but, 78, 79% failure rate's not great. So I tried something new one day, and I said, hey, I'd like this turkey sandwich, right? And no pickle. And doggone it, the first time I did that, that worked. And I didn't know if it was just a visual I'm adding to it that makes you remember, or if the server goes in the back in the kitchen and says, hey, listen, you can't put a pickle on this guy's plate because I don't know what he's going to do. I don't really care, but that seemed to do better. It doesn't always work, but at Jason's Deli, it never worked. Never. I always got one, and it just gets me thinking. So I decided I'm going to look at Jason's menu, because they don't say there's a pickle, okay? They just never say it, and I want to go online and say, well, let's look and see if they ever show or state that they offer pickles. You're gonna have to trust me on this one. It goes on and on and on and on, and it goes on farther than this, and there is none. Now, sure, I could have just hit Control F, which I did, and I found pickle. As you can see, the only instance of pickle is right there, and it's not even that they serve pickle, it's just what they call their kids' meals, which maybe has pickles. I assume they do. Okay, so then one day, I had a bad day. I know you know what this is like. Nothing's going right, okay? Clients being awful, and my project's going south, and I've got to get away. So I'm just gonna get some lunch. I'm not gonna think about this code. I'm not gonna think of this project. I'm gonna relax. So I go to Jason's Deli. No pickle on my sandwich. And I sit down, and damn it, there's a pickle. And I'm, at this point, seething. I'm irrationally angry. And this young dude comes by, 19 years old, I don't know. He's the manager. And he says, and how's everything today? And I said, I need to understand your pickle process. And he starts laughing at me. I'm like, I'm not laughing. I want to know what your pickle process is. How do I go from this to always a pickle? I've got to know. I've got to know. And this guy is really nice. And he says, I don't know, but I'll find out. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I toss away the pickle, and I have my sandwich. And later, this dude comes back, and he says, I found out why. And I'm like, I must know. And here's why. On the cash register at Jason's Deli, there is one button. It's the crisps and pickle button. Now, actually, in America, it's a chips and pickle button, right? We can't have this. This can't happen. We can't have two buttons, one with crisps and one with pickle. No, we have this. Now, you always get a side at Jason's Deli. It's always crisps. Who wouldn't want them? Even I like them. But if you get crisps, which everyone does, you also get a pickle. It is in the system. It's in the process. And that's why I always get one. It's like, okay, I guess I'm happy to know that. There's a interface reason why I get a pickle. Okay, I can accept it. I don't like it, but I guess I can accept it. So then I thought, you know what? Maybe if I just order online, that's gonna be better, right? I get my phone and we're gonna try it out. So I go ahead and I'm gonna order my turkey sandwich, what I always order. And I look at, say, hey, I've got all sorts of options. That's good. I love options. I get to customize my sandwich. And I notice, okay, well, things are different. There's a whole array of options I can choose. And I notice that the oven-baked crisps, which of course I have because they're so healthy, and I'm like this healthy guy. And I want to pick those, but they state here that they come with a pickle. We've made progress. We're at least admitting that it's going to happen. Now, in other places, they don't. So I'm not understanding why some yes, some no, when I know Jason's Deli is going to give you that pickle, whatever you ask for, I guess. So I choose it. All right. All right. So I'm going to write, please, for the love of God, please, no pickle. That's what I'm going to write. And so I try. And that's as far as I got. Because it's constrained to 25 characters. And they don't, I know. Who knows what I'm saying? They don't tell me it's constrained to 25 characters. There's no error handling. I just can't do anything anymore. It's over. That got me pretty upset. So I said, 25 characters? I can do it. And this is 25 characters exactly with spaces and punctuation. So I thought maybe that'll work. And then I keep going because I'm not done yet. I can customize and personalize my meal. Like, who would do this? You know, like Dean's fantastic pickleless sandwich. I don't know. I say, no. This is another opportunity for me to tell you exactly what I think about this whole process. And I'm already thinking, I know I got 25 characters. I'm not going to try. And so this is exactly 25 characters with punctuation and spaces. And this is what I do. Right? And so then I go and get the sandwich, which of course includes a pickle. So no one reads this stuff, you should know. So what's happened here is very simple. Really bad UI choices have screwed me over completely. It's all bad UI, and it's little itty bitty bad UI. All right, now, I get it, okay? I get it. You know, this is really not a big deal. In the grand scheme of things, Dean getting a pickle, I mean, come on. Sure, it annoys me, it drives me crazy, drives the blood pressure up, maybe I'll die early because of it, but that's me. But I thought, you know, if little interface problems can cause me this much angst, what about real problems? What about interface quirks that cause problems on a mass scale? Do they occur? Are they there? And a little bit of looking, and my goodness, yes. So I'm gonna take you on a little trip. There's a zillion of these, right? I'm just gonna show you 3. They're all American examples. Some of you may be familiar, some not. I'm gonna dive into them a little bit differently. But let's go ahead and look at 3 examples of small interface problems that cause big issues. First one is something I like to call 38 minutes to live. 5 years ago this month, you live in Hawaii and you're driving around, you're minding your own business. It's a beautiful day. And suddenly, on the television, on the radio, and on your phone, you see this. Ballistic missile threat inbound. Seek shelter. This is not a drill. So now you're thinking, oh hell, this is it. And then you get to thinking, so North Korea, pretty close. Think they have missiles that could reach here. This feels pretty credible to me. I'm about to be incinerated. Or worse, Nana over in Hawaii is about to be incinerated and you want to contact her. Now, people freaked out, okay? I mean, there were car wrecks and some dude had a heart attack and the phones are all jammed because everyone's trying to call their loved ones and things like this. It was a very confusing time. Whoops, there we go. 38 minutes, okay? This is how long it lasts. Now, that's slightly longer than this talk, but I assure you, if you think you're under imminent threat of thermonuclear destruction and death, 38 minutes is like, it's forever. It's a long time to think this. Now, 38 minutes go up, and suddenly, on your phone, on highway signs, on the TV, ba-bam, we're totally kidding. Everything's fine. There's no missile. Just go about your day like nothing happened. That's basically what happened. Now everyone's, calmed down, and everyone is freaking out, and there's all sorts of anecdotal stories about. I think Pornhub had a spike in usage in the hour after this. I'm serious. You could Google this. Everyone's like, all right. So we made it, but there's a reckoning. What happened, right? So the next day, this is the newspaper, and this is award-winning coverage, and the governor's like, someone pressed the wrong button. And I'm like, I make software. I'm like, come on, what is this? So we'll look into it, because it's not like this is what you make, right? It's not like we do this. I mean, who does this? Oh, you laugh. Okay. So the next day they said, the governor sends out this thing, hey, the Hawaii agency, this was the interface where a problem was and where someone chose the wrong option. And I look at it and I'm like, wow, these look like hyperlinks to me, not a button, but okay. And I noticed that there's two options you could have picked. Now, trust me, these are the options where you say nuclear threat inbound or not really, we're just testing, right? And, I could see where you can mess up. Maybe you pick the top one, not the bottom one, which is a drill. Okay, all right. It could happen. Except the next day, the government says, wait, that wasn't it. This was the one. So I don't believe anything anymore. But they have the same stuff, right? Only this time they're reversed. The drill is on the top. The non-drill is on the bottom. Okay, I get it. No one can understand what this is. You can make a mistake. Fair enough. But I know this looks like a drop-down. I know this is software, right? So I go on a hunt to figure out what company made the software. So found the company that made the software for Hawaii. This is an example of the software. Had to do some digging, found out that they did the emergency management software for like 25 states in the United States, including Hawaii. This is an example of their interface from their documentation that I had to extract out and say, got it, drop down, pick something. Okay, fine. It looks like it's a template where you can set up an alert and pick it. Fair enough, right? Software. And their options look a little bit better, don't they? Right? At least you can read them. Okay, that's fine. And they're talking about earthquakes, or you put them next to each other. Yeah. Well, something I can read, something I have to be trained to understand because I don't know what it is. Fair enough. But then I ask myself, because I make software and whatnot, it's not like you press a button and something happens. There's got to be some speed bump in between what you're doing and what happens, right? I mean, we learn this in school and everything. There's got to be this. Someone had to do this. And so then I'm thinking, why did that happen? So the question is, what went wrong in Hawaii? And there's all sorts of issues that occurred. There's a big investigation. There's a big report. Everything has a report that I'm going to talk to you about today, a governmental report. I read all the reports. You're welcome. They're very dry and very long. But this report said the fault was in poor computer software design. Okay, I accept, right? It totally was. The first problem that we all can see is something I call bad content strategy, which means these options are badly named, they're badly organized, there's a lot of them, they're confusing. You have to be trained in order to even know what you're looking at. I can see where there'd be a problem. This is bad stuff. But there were also other design failures. Oops, let's go back. Try that again. Okay. Did you notice that live and test was in the same dropdown? Oh my God. Well, who does that, okay? But they do that, including in the software demo, okay? Forget about what people made. I didn't mention this. Once you send out the alert, it goes out to wherever it can promulgate out to, and you can't take it back from wherever it's gone. You could stop it from going out, but you can't take back what has gone out. So that means for those 38 minutes, that alert is just sitting out there. No matter what people are doing, people are on Facebook, the governor's like, it's okay, but that alert is still out there. It's still going on, right? You can't undo. And there's too much control. You allow the users to set up anything they want, put live and test, call it what they want, arrange it the way they want, everything. Very, very bad software design. So we get bad interface, could be a problem. However, it still requires a person to screw it up, right? When we look at the system itself, here are other problems. It worked just the way it was supposed to. It's important to know that. Exactly the way it was supposed to. It fit the setup that Hawaii had, fit the template of the software perfectly. It did exactly what it's supposed to do. That means if you did QA on this system, you'd be like, it's fine. No problem, right? And yet, mass panic in Hawaii. So the issue is people, not just interface. So the dude who did this is one guy. This is what he said. He said, I did it, and I'm glad I did it, see? Right? I did what I was told to do. I wouldn't have done anything different. Dang it. He really said that. They totally fired him. And then he sued. He did a big lawsuit, and ultimately the head of the agency stepped down. It was a big deal. But what happened was this, and I'll explain it really briefly because it shows how interface and process are kind of the same thing sometimes. And what happens is he maintains that, this happens during a shift change, and they're going to do an exercise, whatever, and they figure out at night they're going to do it. Shift change happened, morning people come in, and over the loudspeaker, they start this thing, and it goes, exercise, exercise, exercise. That's how it starts. This guy maintains that as soon as they heard there was an alert, beep, some dude picks up the phone, this guy is going to do it, he picks up the phone, and on the way from the phone, from the cradle to his ear, exercise, 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 missile coming in, and that's all he hears, okay? And he hears, this is not a drill. And he hangs up the phone before the ending part, exercise, exercise, exercise. This is what he says. You should know that the language of the alert was inappropriate and wrong. They did things like said, this is not a drill. You don't say that stuff, but they did. So this guy is legit. He could have believed it. I just think he made a mistake, okay? Because when it was all over, I don't know what his name, hey, Larry, you gotta do something about this. You just sent out an alert that says we're all gonna die. And Larry's like, and he won't do anything. And he freezes, and they have to push him aside and do stuff. That's basically what happened. I think the guy messed up, but hard to say. So remember, this happened during a shift change. I want you to remember shift change. Shift changes are bad for software. We're going to come back to those again. The response was bad. They had to, because I couldn't take back that alert, it's just sitting out there, and people have heard it even though they stopped sending it. It just took someone 38 minutes later to say, I totally have an idea. How about we just send out another alert, but it says everything's fine. And everyone's like, that's crazy, let's do it. All right, and that's what they did. It was just another alert that said there's no alert. So it was a very bad response, and everyone got in trouble. Ultimately, a lot of problems happened. But I think there's probably inadequate training on the interface too. We can get into that later. Anyway, I do blame this guy. I think I've thought about it a lot, and I think he screwed up. But he said he didn't. So this is really some of the issue I want you to think about in all the examples we're going to see, including my pickle example, which we'll get to in a minute, because we're not done with the pickles. Bad design leads to bad process, usually workarounds, okay? We're working around a design to do something better that the design doesn't support, and that basically reinforces a bad design. This basically happens all the time, and this is why a process and interface are very, very similar and intertwined. You're gonna see this in the next example. As far as impact for Hawaii, they had to redo all the software at all these different states. They had to put in new processes, like 2 people have to tell you if you're going to die from thermonuclear fusion, not 1. Things like that. It wasn't just the interface, but that was fixed. Okay, let's keep going. Now that was 5 years ago. Let's go way back to 1979, and let's go from thermonuclear fusion to thermonuclear fission, right? Some of you might not have been born yet. 1979, America. This place is called 3 Mile Island. It's on an island that's 3 miles long in the Susquehanna River in Pennsylvania in the United States. This is in a very densely populated area of the United States, up near New York and Philadelphia, New Jersey, and all those places. Now, there's a problem with reactor number 2 one day. And reactor number 2 is getting too hot. I mean, really hot, like this thing's gonna melt down hot. And over the course of a few days, people are freaking out. If this thing melts down, what are we gonna do? They started plans for evacuating the Northeast United States. 20 million, 30 million people? I don't know. I mean, this is back in 79, there was that many people. Really not easy to happen. And I should mention something really important. 2 weeks before this incident, this movie came out. You may have heard of it. It's called The China Syndrome. And it was a movie about a nuclear reactor meltdown due to technical problems and personal bumbling that led to disaster. And then 2 weeks later, it really happens. So everyone in America is like, this is a problem. So we're freaking out. Now, what happened, though, with reactor number 2 is the engineers solved the problem, and we didn't melt down. Now, there were some problems with the overheating of the core, but it was brought under control. Yay. It wasn't the disaster it could have been. And so they do an investigation. This is former President Jimmy Carter, who this dude is still alive. He's like 1,000 years old now. And here he is in his super clean booties walking through the control room. And this is a spoiler for what's going wrong. Just look at this control room. This is one itty bit of the nuclear facility control room. All right, it's intense. All right. Now, there was a report, of course. There's a congressional inquiry. What went wrong? Why did it melt down? Why was the problem so bad? And how did we fix it? Well, this is part of the report itself. And there's this one little valve, okay? It's called the PORV valve, which is a simple little valve that closes off the coolant inside the reactor. So if this valve is closed, the coolant's in the reactor, we're fine. If the valve is open, the coolant gets out, and if you don't replace the coolant or whatever, hey, it's just gonna get hot. So there was this indicator light in the control room, the PORV indicator light, one of the many little knobs and buttons in the sea of buttons, as big as this room, right? And the light is gonna tell you whether that valve is closed or not. So if the light's on, we're good. Coolant is sealed off, that's awesome. So the core is heating up. All the folks, all the engineers look and say, wow, the core is getting hot, but hey, PORV valve, it's on, we're good. What else is the problem, right? And they're going to look for the other problems. And they spend lots of time doing that. I mean, like hours. Hours is a long time when the core is getting hot, right? So they're looking for it. But here's the thing. According to the report, the PORV valve was in fact open the whole time, and coolant had leaked out. It's because that indicator light, all that indicator light did was say that the instruction that was supposed to be sent to the valve to close it had in fact been sent. That's it. So that light is saying, I did my job. It's like a union light. I got one thing I do. So this thing's open, the light's on, and the engineers, they don't draw the conclusion that what if the light's lying to me? Right? What if my interface is lying to me? And they don't realize this. This all did happen. There's a shift change at the time this was happening. So you have two groups of people coming in. They all have to follow the same procedures to figure out what's wrong, which led to part of the problem. There's more, though, in the report. At any given time in that control room, there's no fewer than 52 alarms that are on. That's like normal operation, right? Things are going on. You got to keep control of them. It's like the rule of the Incredibles. If everything's a problem, if everything's super, no one is, right? You're just used to seeing this stuff. And then another problem. Sometimes these switches, these knobs, these indicators, they're malfunctioning because that happens with technology. But you couldn't just write a JIRA ticket. What did you do in 1979? The answer is you wrote on this card, hey, this knob here sticks a little, it's a problem, we need to fix it, and you twist tie it onto the knob so that people remember. And this is what it looked like, right? And at any given time, there was a bazillion of these things, right? And what they would do is they would cover up other switches. So if you want to see whether a light's on, is that light on? Stuff like that. It's a real mess of an interface, very difficult to handle. So here are some of the reasons why this is a problem. Oh, and by the way, I should say they figured it out as is usual in these cases, same for Hawaii. Some really smart person after a while said, what if the light lies? What if we're wrong about the light? And everyone's like, come on, we went through all this. He's like, no, what if we're wrong? So just some smart person had to break convention, basically, to figure it out. So yay, engineers who are smart. But again, it works just the way it's supposed to work. That light worked perfectly. There was no problem with how the interface was constructed in terms of its function whatsoever. Now, the issue with usability, that's another thing. We got it?
If
All right. So that's another thing. Usability is complete afterthought in that grand place with all the zillion buttons. And this is sort of from the report. I mean, it's really damning. I won't read it all. You can see it yourself. This is some of the nicest stuff they said about usability when they tested it. Really, this is all over the place. And then, you've got the control room design. This is what they said in the report about the control room design. Again, this is some of the nicer stuff they're saying about the control room design. Look at the labeling part, right? They're like, it's inadequate, ambiguous, because all the engineers wanted like 800 things to change that weren't right. That's a lot. Okay, so they had this crazy, confused response. What happens is no one's communicating well, because again, there's a shift change, and everyone has to try the same things that the previous people tried, because there's rules about it. So they're all, again, we're scrambling. We've got hours to figure this out. And basically, process invades where something happened because of the interface sort of started an issue, right? And now process is kind of making the problem worse because it's not attuned to the problem, right? So we already know we have poor error handling. We have to try first A, then B. After B, then C, because that's what we have to do. And if we don't, someone's going to jail, right? That's how that basically works. And A was the problem, right? Okay. But no one's wrong. No one's wrong. Would have passed QA, all of it. Yet, it could have been a meltdown. Now, here's the real issue. Think about this valve. It's a little valve light. Really, if they had caught it right away, the core would have never even started getting hot. We wouldn't have had this problem at all. Since 1979, you can just chart America's use of nuclear energy, and it goes like this. It goes down to nothing. China syndrome, 3 Mile Island, we're done. And that leads you all up to today, where the United States would be an entirely different energy profile, if not for this. That's a big deal. It's a big deal for economies. It's a big deal for geopolitics. It's a big deal for carbon emissions. It's a big deal for all of it. All right. Okay, let's do another one. We're going to stay in the United States. We're going to continue to make fun of United States interfaces. Okay. This is the year 2000. So some of you might remember this one. All right, a little bit weird when you're not, everyone in the United States understands what I'm about to say. When I'm outside of the United States, you got to explain it, right? So we're doing this election in the year 2000 between Al Gore and George W. Bush. Now, in America, we don't elect our presidents through mass popular vote. We basically have 50 different state elections. So if you win the California state election, you get all of those delegates or electors, electoral votes from California. And all those numbers mean, like bigger states and more population, more electors. So if you win California, it's awesome. You got 54. If you win, Vermont, 3. Yay, Vermont, right? Because no one lives there. And so at the end of the election night, you got to get 270. That's the magic number. 270 and you win. No one is at 270 at the end of the night. There's 25 undecided. Florida is not sure yet, okay? Now in America, we're used to at election evening, we're like, yeah, we got it. We know who the president is. We're good, right? No problem. But this time we had no idea, right? And Florida was close, man. We're talking hundreds of votes, all right? Now Florida has got millions of people in it on its own. United States at the time, probably 320 million people, hundreds of votes. The entire presidency of the United States is up in the air because of that. So for 6 weeks, we had no idea who it was going to be. We're like, oh, it's going to be someone. We'll find out. It went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. I'll mention that in a minute. But this was all due to a really bad interface in just a couple of places in the south of Florida. That's it. And this was the ballot they used in the south of Florida. Now, it's a paper ballot that's fed into a machine. Even in the year 2000, this was considered old, but they still got it, okay? Now, the reason they knew to look for this was because they noticed that everyone's analyzing the votes, and they notice in the southern part of Florida, there are an unusually high number of votes for a far-right candidate. And this is like a Democratic left-wing stronghold. And we're like, this is odd. It's statistically weird. So they go and look further, and they realize it's in a couple of counties, and there's lots of votes for this guy that shouldn't be getting this many votes. It's weird. So they look into it, and this is what they find. This is the ballot. It's called a butterfly ballot because it's got that spine in the middle and beautiful wings. It's the most beautiful butterfly I've ever seen. And it goes weirdly left, right, it crisscrosses, and you basically put the paper into the machine, and you have a little pin, right, and you poke a hole through this paper next to the candidate you want. Lots of candidates for president, although in America, only the Republican and Democratic, they get everything. There's all these other folks who are like, no one even knows their names, okay, basically. All right, so here, just follow me for a minute. Say you wanted to vote for the Republican, and that was George W. Bush, right? Okay, it's pretty easy, right? You just punch a hole right there. Say you wanted to vote for this Reform Party. This is like a far-right party. All these other parties are extremely small. Again, people would like, if you told me who was the vice president nomination, if you asked me this, and I've given this talk a lot, I couldn't tell you this guy, right? But it's easy to know where to click or where to pin. Say you wanted to vote for the Democrat. Now, if you're in South Florida, most of you want to do that because we're a Democratic stronghold, right? Well, I don't know. I mean, do I punch a hole through the first area I see or the one closer to the number? Hard to say. Enough of a problem that it causes a statistical anomaly. I mean, that's the theory, but the theory is basically correct. So if you chose the first one, congratulations. You voted for the person even worse than the guy you didn't want to vote for, all right? Basically, from your perspective, that happened. And so people are trying to count these votes. For 6 weeks, they're trying to count these votes because what happened was, people would punch a hole and go, no, and do another one. And then you're like, how do we count this? Or sometimes people would start to poke a hole and not finish. I made a mistake, punch the other one. And so you got one that's kind of dented in. Does that count? What if there's only a dent? What if you punch it through and it's kind of still hanging on? Is it a vote? All this, 6 weeks, Supreme Court, right? And so anyway, the point is it gets decided and a president's chosen. It was George W. Bush. But to this day, people wonder, did we get it right? Right? It's kind of hard to say. But we know this about the design. Super awkward, very weird. I mean, imagine just a normal everyday person going, any of us could have made this mistake, right? But imagine your grandma trying to vote, right? It's like everything else. It works the way it's supposed to work. There's nothing wrong with it. It works the way it always worked. Because in most elections, the gap is so wide that you never even worry about these provisional ballots you don't know how to count. Because it doesn't matter. You counted them all and put them one way or the other. It wouldn't make a difference. But this time, when you got like a couple of hundred votes, man, every vote, every ballot was extremely important. And then we also get this problem that's a real problem for us, is that the design itself fits the function. The design fits the machine. There's not a design meant for human consumption. It's just for machine consumption, and that's what you get. So they can only follow the best case. Like if the best case goes fine, this will be fine. Okay, great. I mean, good luck with your software if that's what you do. And there's no real plan for what goes wrong. So the result, Americans are sort of shaken by this. They are, all these vote systems go out the door. Everyone's changing their voting systems. Florida was so paranoid about this. They're now like 2 seconds after the voting's over. We got it. We know it. We counted it. We're good. And they're amazing now. But it really changed how we do this. And the real issue is like, you have to ask, did we get the president right in 2000? And it's a legitimate question to this day. And people still in the United States argue about it. They really do. It's kind of a big deal. If a different person were president, it just changes all the rest of the dominoes from here on out. And that's just a little interface problem in one little area. Okay. So those are real problems. But back to the important stuff. Okay. Me. Okay. Me in the pickles. This is the important stuff. Okay. This is the crisps and pickle button. Would you like to know why there's a crisps and pickle button jammed together? Because it's not just that it was there, I actually also know why it's there. And I asked the guy, why'd you do this? And he talks to his people, and the answer is simple. There was only room on the cash register interface for one more button. So they just sort of jam the options together. That's the easy option to jam together because no one cares. That's basically it. It's just an interface decision. No more room. Now, I have obviously an opinion about that, but let's look at the UI offenses there. What's the problem with this UI compared to the things we talked about before, right? It's a function fit. That means we put an interface together based on what the interface must be, not based on what people necessarily need. Now, I know it's a ridiculous case, right? I'm like almost a ludicrous edge case, but just let's forget that for a minute because edge cases may actually be important. In my case, not, but in other cases, very much so. So when we're thinking about just fitting function, we're probably not making a good choice. It works just the way it's supposed to work. You would never catch this problem, except if I show up and give you trouble, right? You remember the inconsistent interfaces, right? Whether I was at the cash register, looking up at the wall, on the website, on the phone, it was all different. The only thing that was the same was I got a pickle all the time. And it's internally focused, which means Jason's Deli sells me sandwiches. They give me pickles with their crisps. It's what they do. And they're focused on what they do. Now, in this case, it's no problem. It's just a sandwich. But most software is created from that kind of perspective. This is the thing we are pushing out there to these people. This is what it does. This is why it does it. There it is. And we're not really thinking about how people truly consume it or how people deal with it. Otherwise, we would have never had that butterfly ballot. We would have never even made it, right? Okay. Process was bad, all right? I get it. Bad edge case testing. Lost in translation. Do you want to know why I really get a pickle? Because I told you about the interface, but not the real reason, okay? Here's what happens. It's all about process. I show up. I would like a turkey sandwich and no pickle. And so they're like, oh, okay. And the attendant says, hey, Frank, there's no pickle on this one because he has to press the crisp and pickle button. There is no other button to press. So that's in the system. It's on the receipt. The word pickle is on the receipt. I should have showed that. All right, so it's got to be an audible. Frank, don't do that. And Frank, God bless him, he might not remember by the time he's really making the sandwich. And Frank's got some muscle memory. Dun, 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 dun. Put a pickle in the bag and give it to Dean, right? That's how that goes. And that's why I always get that. But it's worse because whenever I go to get a sandwich, it's lunchtime, right? That's when I have a sandwich and it's busy. So I do the whole thing, please, pickle, right? Frank, no pickle on this one. Gotcha. Frank's not necessarily the guy who even makes my sandwich. Okay, there's lots of people back there. They've got tickets. Frank, if he doesn't get to my sandwich, he has to tell someone else, oh yeah, on that one, there's no pickle. That means I've got no shot, no chance. Okay, which is why I always got a pickle at Jason's Deli. So we started with the bad interface, process reinforces it. I'm sure there was a time where I didn't get one. I have trouble remembering it, okay? That's what I get. And that just sort of led me down on this road. So what I want to leave us with is why this is important for us, like why we should care about it as people who make software for a living, who design software for a living. So an example here is this little hospital intranet we did some years ago. Very simple, right? Lovely little intranet, really well user tested, right from the sketches to prototypes to pre-launch, and we know it's going to work. We have confidence that users are cool with it. So that was great. We feel like we're doing our job. That's fine. And we had lots of nice little functionality. We learned that something simple like you just got to find a document fast. All right? You just got to find like a policy or a procedure. And if you're a nurse, you've got this cart and you're in the hallway and you're moving it around and you're on the internet looking for a procedure and you got to go pretty quick. So we wanted to make sure it was tested well. And it tested great. People could go through it really fast. We're like, yay us. And the reason why we cared so much about that is we did a bunch of research before we even started, specifically with nurses, and they're saying stuff like this. Like, I can't do my job without this. So we're like, yeah, us to the rescue, right? No problem. But then we get to stuff like this, where they're saying, look, if I can't find this thing I need, if I can't find this document I need fast, my patient's in trouble. They're 10 feet away and they're in trouble. I've got to find this. Right? And so when we read stuff like that and we hear people face-to-face tell us that, man, we are dialed in. While we're designing and then while we're working on the functionality, we know it's important and we are very focused, which is why we brought users in again to test and time them, stuff like that, stuff that people don't do a lot, but must happen in order to be sure the thing you're making is really working right. Okay, a couple core lessons we're done. Little things are big, are very big. The littlest thing you're working on now matters. The littlest bit of code, the littlest interface quirk totally matters. You don't know which one of them matters a lot, but they do, and at least one of them does today. Sorry. It's never enough to make something right, make things according to spec, and make it past QA. It's not enough because real people have to use the stuff we make, and we've got to be sure. This is hard for us because we don't control things like this. Right? We don't control what happens with process, but we can be thinking about it, and we can be alerting to processes that reinforce problems that we're seeing. Like we might find a problem and realize it's process, and we can raise our hand and say, no matter what I do, this will fail because your process is going to make it fail. Very much true. Okay, and definitely want to leave you with this. The stuff you make does matter, no matter how little you might think, no matter how silly it might be to you what you're making. A parking system, to process parking, whatever. At some point, someone has got to use it. You are serving them. You're not just making software. We are serving nurses who are helping people survive, not making a document system. Does that make sense? It would have solved a lot of the problems we mentioned with Hawaii, all right, with 3 Mile Island, with the butterfly ballot. Sure would have helped me not get a pickle. Because this is what you really need to remember, okay? If you remember nothing at all, please take this with you from NDC London, and that's it. We did it. That's the chips and pickles story. Thank you. All right, this is me. You find me anywhere you like, connect with me, it's great. I don't know if you have a question, but I'm happy to answer it. I'm not a nuclear engineer, so tread lightly.